Hello dear students. So in this particular lecture we will do the constituents, or you can say that architecture or component of .NET framework. So the .NET framework is composed of four main components, right? Number one is CLR, Common Language Runtime. So we have gone through the CLR in our previous lecture in brief, right? Number second is FCL, the framework class library, right? Number third is core languages, WinForms, ASP.NET and ADO.NET, right? And the fourth one is other modules like WCF, WPF, WF card space, link, entity framework, right? Parallel link, task parallel library, etc. Right? So let's look these components one by one. So the first one is Common Language Runtime, which is called CLR. Right. So it is a program execution engine that loads and executes your program. Right. So what it does, it converts your program into the native code. Right. And it acts as an intermediate between the framework and the operating system. Right. So this common language runtime is used to execute your program, right? So now let us look what are the functions of CLR, right? So the first basic function is it converts the program into the native code, right? It converts the program into native code, right? The second one is it handles exceptions, right? By the try, catch, and finally block, right? It provides the type safety, right? It does the automatic memory management, right? It provides security to your code because if you create a library for a particular application, right? A DLL file. In DLL file, your code is in the form of your code is hidden, right? So the outsiders or the outside users cannot directly access to your code, so it provides the safety, right? It improved your performance, right? It provides the language independency because you can choose any of the language, right? um, and that supports the framework. You can choose VB, you can choose C Sharp, you can choose Python, you can choose C++, or you can choose any language which supports the .NET framework, right? It provides platform independency, right? You can run your program in any platform, right? It provides automatic garbage collection, right? It provides the features of object-oriented programmings like inheritance, right? Polymorphism, the overloading, etc. Right? So these are the CLR functions, right? So we'll do some detailed discussion on the CLR later on, maybe in our next two lectures, right? So here's a list of CLR components, right? So this is a diagram of CLR components, right? So if you check the components, we have the base class library support. First one is base class library support. So what does this base class library do? So it is a class library that provides support of the classes to the .NET application, right? It provides some predefined classes that supports the .NET application, right? Number second one is the thread support. Thread support is it provides the execution of the multi-threaded application, right? Then next one is COM marshaller, right? What does this COM marshaller do? It provides communication between the COM objects, right, and your application, right? Then the next one is type checker. Type checker means it checks the type used in your application, right, and verify after that by the standard which is provided by common language runtime, right. It means it check your types used in application, right. So type checker. Next is exception manager. Exception manager means it checks the exception or handles the exception, right, by the try, catch, or finally block to avoid the application failure at the runtime, right. Next is security engine. It provides security to your code, right. It provides debugging facility also. Debug engine provides debugging facility, means you can check your code line by line by applying the breakpoints over your code, right. Next is IL to native compilers. IL means intermediate language to native compiler, means intermediate language is goes into the native compiler. We will discuss intermediate language and native compilers later on, right. Then next is code manager. It manages your code at runtime, right. And next one is garbage collector, right. It does the automatic garbage collection. It releases the unused memory and allocates it to a new to a new application, right. Next is class loader. Class loader means it load all the classes at runtime by importing a namespace over there. I will tell you what is a namespace later on, right. So the second one is a framework class library, which is also called FCL, right. We have discussed a little bit FCL in our earlier lecture also, right. So what is FCL? It is a standard library, right, which is a collection of thousands of classes. Means this FCL includes the collection of thousands of classes, namespaces, interfaces, and value types, right, used to build any application, right. So this FCL contains the BCL, which is also called base class library, right. So this is the core of FCL and provides the basic functionalities to build an application, right. So if we check the diagram of this framework class library, we have a base class library here, BCL, which provides all the basic classes and libraries to build an application by including just a namespace at the top of your code, right. If you remember in Java, right, what you do for using the automatic using the predefined methods, classes in your code, what you have to do, you have to import the package, right. Like if you import this, import java dot util dot asterisk, right, at the top of your code. So by importing this, you are able to access all the predefined classes and methods of that package, right. In the same way, in C and C++, you use hash include so and so, right, stdio.h or conio.h or iostream, right. In the same way, in .NET, you have to you have to use the namespace, right. Let me tell you how to use this namespace, right. So namespace is used by the using directive and the name of the namespace. For example, using system, right? Then if you want to use another namespace, you have to include using system.data, right? In the same way, you imports a package in Java. So you have to include this namespace by using directive at the top of your program. Right. So what does this namespace do? It provides you a predefined classes and methods for building an application. Right. For example, using system.data is used for providing you the basic classes for accessing the database. Right. Or you can say that if you include using system.data.sql client, right? So this will provide you the basic functionality for accessing the SQL Server database. So this is the use of the namespace in .NET, right? So the namespaces which we have discussed in our earlier slide, we will do it later on in detail. We will check what all the namespace about, and we will check which namespace is used for which functionality later on, right? Now the third one is core languages, WinForms, ASP.NET and ADO.NET, right? So what is WinForms? WinForms is if you want to create a form-based application or window-based application, then you'll use the WinForms, right? So it is a smart client technology for the .NET framework, right? It has a set of managed libraries for the common application tasks such as reading and writing into a file system, or you can say that you can create a form-based application with the help of WinForm. So this is the most basic type of the development, right? Then the next is ASP.NET, right? ASP.NET means if you want to design a website, if you want to design a web application, right? So it provides you a web framework, right? It provides you a web framework to develop websites, web application, and web services, right? It also integrates HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? In your development, right? So it was first released in 2002 and it was developed by the Microsoft. Now the next one is ADO.NET, right? ADO.NET, we have discussed all the things in our previous lecture in brief. So ADO.NET is ActiveX Data Objects.NET. It is a framework which is used to establish a connection between application and your database, or you can say that data sources. And the data sources can be SQL Server. You can use SQL Server. You can use XML, right? You can use any database, right? So ADO.NET consists of several classes that can be used to connect, retrieve, insert, and delete your data, right? So it will do the CRUD operation, right? Create, retrieve, update, and delete your data, right? So ADO.NET is the most important part of this .NET, right? So we will learn this ADO.NET later on. So the last one is other modules, which is related to this constituents of .NET framework, which includes the advanced part of this .NET. We have WCF, we have WPF, we have Workflow Foundation, we have Card Space, Link, Entity Framework, parallel link, task parallel library, etc. So we'll check one by one in brief. Don't go in detail because this is not a part of your syllabus, right? If you want to do something, you can do by yourself, right? So the first one is WPF, right? So WPF is Windows Presentation Foundation. So it is a graphical subsystem by Microsoft, right? Just like your WinForms, like your Windows application, right? So it is used for rendering user interfaces in window-based application, right? So WPF was previously known as Avalon, right, which is a part of .NET Framework 3.0 in 2006, right? What it uses, it uses DirectX, right? Now the next one is WCF. WCF is a Windows Communication Foundation, right? It is a service oriented, it is used for the service oriented application like your web services, right? So if you want to send a asynchronous message from one service endpoint to another, then you can use the Windows Communication Foundation, right? Next one is Workflow Foundation, right? So Workflow Foundation provides an API, right, in the workflow engine, just like the web API, right? So it is used for creating the APIs, right? Next one is LINQ. It is a language integrated query. So it is a query language, just like a structured query language. It introduced in .NET Framework 3.5. Right, it is used to make the query for data sources with C# or Visual Basic programming languages. So if those who want to use C#, then you can use C#. Those who want to use VB as a language, you can use VB, right? Next one is entity framework, right? So what is the entity framework? It is a ORM based open source framework. ORM means object relational mapper, right? So what it does, it automatically creates the classes of your database database tables, right? So it creates the two layers, data access layer and the business logic layer. Data access layer means uh, it provides you all the basic details, what the data you used in your table, what is its type, and the other things. Business logic layer is the code you are writing for a particular task, the query you are writing for a particular task, right? So it eliminates a lot of developer efforts to handle the database. So this is called entity framework. Now the next one is parallel link. So parallel link is used for the parallel programming, right? So it includes the simplicity and readability of LINQ, the language integrated query, and provides the power of parallel programming, right? So it can improve the execution of LINQ query, right? Or it will provide some APIs and model to improve the .NET framework, right? Now in what happened in 2015, task parallel libraries were added in .NET 4.5 version, right? So we can do some asynchronous programming, right? Task based asynchronous model was added, so we can do task parallel programming also, right? So that's all for the today's lecture. So don't go in deep with this WPF, WCF, LINQ, entity framework, task parallel, right? Will not doing the programming in that particular area. We will do the ASP.NET, C#, and ADO.NET, right? The advanced topic, we will cover some advanced topic later on, right? So thank you.